What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. I don't know if you could tell, but I've got a brand new lens to the camera. The old one was destroyed due to the fact that I was welding and grinding and filming really close. So there was welding sparks all over the lens that got stuck. So in my previous video, let's say 10-20 videos back, there has been some small blurry spots here, but now everything is clear, so I'm gonna take better care of this one. But anyway, today we are going to lower the convertible. So I have been disassembling the struts and the springs from my 9.3 Aero, and I found some cool stuff. So here are the rear shocks, Bilstein, and what I knew that this was on, but what I didn't know was the lowering springs. They are from H&R, which is a premium brand, and these little guys lower the car 35 millimeters. And I bet they have been on this car for like probably 8 years or something like that. So they may be a little bit lower than 35 millimeters. And when I remove the front ones, these are a little bit of pain in the ass. I don't like the construction at all. It's much easier on a 9.5 or a NG 9.3, so but at least I got them off. But I broke one of these ABS sensor brackets, but I will be much more gentle when I remove them from the convertible, so maybe I could just switch them out. And also I noticed on these control arms that it had some Powerflex bushings, and this is really nice. It makes a huge difference in performance when you have the Powerflex bushings instead of the original rubber ones. So I thought I was going to start with measuring from the floor up to the fender, so we get approximately a measurement how much the lowering kit actually lowers the car. But the measurement is not the important part. The important bit is to get a super nice stance and a better chassis and better control and handling, and minimize this wheel gap, which I think we will do really good. So let's start. So this is not a how-to video, but I'm just gonna explain very quickly how I do it, and this is the way to do it with the least amount of tools needed. So the first thing you will do is loosen this little fellow that sits right here that holds the brake disc in place. These are very common to get stuck, and you have to drill them out. So be very careful when you loosen them. I usually put the bits in and then give it a few punches with a hammer and then start to turn it, and that helps in a lot of the case. Then we follow up by removing these two 18mm bolts that holds the brake caliper, And then we remove the ABS sensor bracket. I destroyed two of them, or one of them earlier, so I'm gonna be very gentle when removing this. And this bolt up here, I think it's 16 millimeter that needs to be loosened. And there's a big 32 millimeter bolt behind this, a nut, 32 millimeter nut. And just to make it easy, then there's a 19 millimeter up there, and you will need a ball joint separator to get this out. But the easiest way to do it without that tool is to loosen up the control arm in the rear and in the front. I think the rear is a 16 millimeter and the front is a 15 millimeter. So you will loosen that up, and then you will have and yes, this 30 millimeter bolt as well, that's behind here, that needs to be loosened as well. So with all of these loose, then it's just to remove the 30 millimeter bolts in the top, and at the same time hold the whole strut, because it's pretty heavy when it falls down, especially when you got the whole control arm holding it too. So let's get started.
Heat in my vein like vernacular. Cook up the beat with a spatula. Y'all are not ready for action. I'm smoking these rappers and feeling spectacular. Making a killing like massacre. Watch out, I'm whipping my wrist. Right on my city, been pissed, but I show them love. I'm not the one that's at risk. My homie told me that when people rise up against you, it's a sign of your destiny real. Fake ones been hating cause they know that one day you're making it. Jealousy's all they can feel. Plugging the phone, drifting my zone. Painting the future when thinking alone. About when I'm grown, already blown. How'd I get best with this beautiful home? You were the sight, beautiful life, beautiful sex, my husband and wife, beautiful children, people who want to come kill me because I'm expressing my rights. Hopefully I am not smoking the nicotine, pack up and kill you like they on a mission. Cigarettes part of my nutrition, rhyming like I got tuition.
So here is a comparison over the two struts. This is the one I'm going to use. You can see it misses the brake shield. It's not super necessary. And this is pretty rusty, so I won't be doing the work to move it over. The only thing is, here is the slot where the little bolt that holds the brake disc should thread in. And in this case I drilled it out, so I have to drill this hole and re-thread it so I can use it. Other than that, I think we're just gonna reverse the process and mount it in the car. And I'm also going to use, this is the one that was sitting on the convertible, and this bushing is just rubbish. It's super dry and doesn't do very much. And on the Aero there was Powerflex bushings, so it's definitely an upgrade.
of the front struts are changed, and these struts are a pain in the ass if you compare to the 9.5 and the NG93, as I said before. And I have started with the rear, and this is much more easier. So the shocks just sit with one bolt at the bottom. I have already loosened them up. I have used a lot of WD-40 and let it sit overnight, and then just got to loosen them very carefully, because you don't want to break them. I did that on the 9.3 Aero when I disassembled these shocks. So I have removed bottom bolts on both sides. Then it's just to pick out the springs and support with a jack. So now it's just to loosen. Since it's a convertible, it's much stuff in the way, so you need to get behind all this. You can see it inside there. So I'm just gonna loosen this on both sides and then reassemble everything, and then I think we should be good to go. Here is a little comparison. The old shock to the left and the new one to the right. You can see it's a lot thicker, more stable, and it's a little bit shorter as well. So it's perfectly for the lowering spring. And you can see the lowering spring from H&R is to the left and the original one is to the right. And the difference between this is the H&R spring will compress a lot, whilst the original doesn't move as much. So I'm done with one side. This is the original side. I like the look of it. So it lowered 2.5 centimeters in the back from 69.5 to 67, and in the front 1.5 centimeters down from 68 to 66.5. And the important thing, in my opinion, is that it's a little bit higher in the rear, so you get that leaning stance. I don't want it to be lower in the rear, and it would just look like it's soggy in the rear. So far really satisfied, and you have to remember that these shocks and springs has been decompressed for a while, so it might settle a little bit. So let's take it out for a drive and see how it feels on the road. So the first drive of the car, it already feels a lot better than it used to before. Before it was just this flimsy feel, just like a flubber, no direct steering or anything. And this is just the shocks and springs, so it does a lot to the handling of the car, and that just that little bit of lowering does a lot to the handling of the car. So far really satisfied. Before I did this upgrade, the car was really nervous at speeds like 70 kilometers per hour up to 100, but now I don't feel it as much. So I think the Powerflex bushings did the job to keep the control arm or the helper arm in place, because the bushings was not that good. So really satisfied with the results so far. And as I said, this is just one upgrade. There is a lot more you can do. So for example, there's this steering rack bracket that a lot of people that drives the 9.3 does. So I'm planning to do that as well. And here is a little distance that raises the engine. You put it under the rear engine mount, and it raises the car like 6 millimeters, and that is to get better angles of the drive shafts. But so far this handles perfectly, so really satisfied. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see further progress in this build. And I will see you very soon again. Bye.